The BMW Group's very first UK market commercial vehicle is a very fashionable one. The MINI Clubvan hits on an idea only tentatively explored in the past, namely that of the chic boutique LCV. If you need a city van but don't require much space and don't want something, well, van-like, then this could be just the job. You might think that all commercial vehicles are about space and sensible practicality, and most of them are. But what about businesses that don't prioritise those things? Their fashionable wares don't take up much room, and to transport them, they'd rather like a set of wheels that might attract the odd interested glance or two. Something like this, the MINI Clubvan. Only MINI could have made this model, the BMW brand recognising that its nameplate's heritage in small load luggers goes back over half a century. A pity not to play on that, especially given that in the Clubman estate car, MINI had a ready-made base for such a vehicle. The designers had only to go to that model, remove the rear seat, add a bulkhead and blank out the rear side windows, and the Clubvan was born. It is, of course, a very different thing from the 1960 Morris minivan original. That was a compact and affordable urban workhorse. The Clubvan, in contrast, is much more of a fashionable purchase, which makes it a little ironic that its 500-kilogram payload is exactly double that of its predecessor. All proof, MINI says, that style can be practical and practicality can be stylish. Are they right? Let's find out. The MINI Clubvan is based on the same chassis as the Clubman estate, so it's a tried and tested formula. You can therefore expect it to drive with the same engaging characteristics. Changes have, though, been made to the spring and damper rates, as well as the suspension bushes to help cope with its slightly different commercial remit. The car uses the three lowest powered 1.6 litre engines you'd get in any other second generation MINI, plus the same model designations to go with them, which means that you get a 98 brake horsepower unit in the Clubvan 1, a 120 brake horsepower power plant in the Clubvan Coupe, and a 110 brake horsepower diesel in the Clubvan Coupe D. And on the move? Well, this model is reckoned by some to offer more fun than any other MINI variant. That's because it carries less weight around than the Clubman it's based upon, meaning strong performance, especially in the torque-rich Coupe D that I'm trying here, the variant to choose if you're thinking of loading the thing up on a regular basis. If, on the other hand, you just want a cool-looking mobile hoarding for your business, you're probably best served by the basic Clubvan 1. Here, the normally aspirated petrol 1.6 is still respectably rapid, 0 to 62 miles an hour taking around 10 seconds, which is a tad faster than the diesel. Though, of course, black pump motoring gives you more pulling power, around 270 newton meters of torque, in fact, in the case of this Clubvan D model. Compare that to what you get from a comparable Ford Fiesta van, just 161 newton meters. Now, it all explains the willingness of this near 1.7-ton vehicle to haul a braked trailer, grossing it up to 750 kilograms. Now, the chassis settings here are identical to those of the Clubman estate, as is the posh multi-link rear suspension. So, the whole MINI go-kart ethos is carried over intact, right down to standards of ride that take the brand's traditional firmness a stage further, something probably not helped by low-profile tyres which add to the road noise already created by the near-useless side door. Noise, in fact, is the main difference you'll notice if you come to a Clubvan after familiarity with an ordinary MINI car. It's all down to that undeadened acoustic space behind you, of course. That and the woeful rear three-quarter vision you get thanks to the lack of rear side window glass. This would have been helped if MINI had taken the trouble to add the kind of convex section to both the door mirrors that you'll find on many more conventional vans. A job for the facelift, perhaps. Still, compensation comes with solid brakes and the nicely weighted snickety-click manual gear shift you'll get if you choose not to pay the extra for the optional 6-speed automatic transmission. Plus, reasonably feelsome electric power steering that's pointy and direct enough to encourage you to take the country route to the wholesalers and try and throw the thing about a bit, after you've unloaded, of course. The original Morris minivan inspired the subsequent Morris Mini Traveller estate car. Here, of course, it's been the other way round, with the modern MINI Clubvan passenger model on sale for 6 years before this club van model was introduced early in 2013. Once it arrived, it was quickly clear that there was nothing else quite like it. Yes, the LCV market had long targeted florists, couriers and electricians with very small vans. Yes, attempts had been made to make these a little more fashionable, with models like Ford's Fiesta Sport Van and Vauxhall's Corsa Van Sportive. Nothing, though, with the retro fashionable appeal on offer here. This probably the coolest small commercial vehicle to hit the market since the Nissan S-Cargo. As such, unlike most vans, it'll be bought by the people who'll be driving it. Trendy, upmarket urban operators who want such a vehicle to do its bit in promoting the image of their businesses. Maybe upmarket butchers or people with cute little companies selling things like cupcakes or chocolate boxes, flowers or frills. Folk who won't care that the twin rear doors open to reveal a loading volume of just 860 litres, because they're never likely to carry anything big enough to trouble the 500 kilogram maximum payload. They may not even care about the almost useless side door. I hesitate to call it a side loading door because you can't actually load anything through it, thanks to the way the interior mesh divider allows you to stretch an arm in, but not a lot else. But I'm sounding all practical here, and I don't mean to be, because there's little point in approaching a club van in that frame of mind. Not if you want to like it anyway. And like it you probably will once you get in, fiddle with the height adjustable driver's seat and take your place behind the height and reach adjustable wheel. It is, as you might expect, exactly the same as any normal second-generation modern-era Mini here, which means that it's far nicer than any other commercial vehicle I can think of, with decent build quality from the British Oxford factory. There's that iconically large central speedometer for a start, sadly abandoned by Mark III Mini models, but present and correct here as a display not only for your velocity, but also for everything from the optional sat-nav to the onboard trip computer. So much stuff, in fact, that the actual speed you're travelling at is often visually crowded out in the clutter. Just as well, then, that there's also an additional digital readout on the sweet little circular rev counter that sprouts above the steering column. Other Mini eccentricities include the key fob slot starter and the small, neat, chromed toggle-style switches for the electric windows that you'll find on the dash rather than their usual place on the doors. Cabin storage includes a deep-lidded glove box and rather small door pockets. Plus you get a couple of cup holders and a useful tray at the bottom of the fascia. One of the many unusual things about this model will be its likely customer petrol preference. In an LCV market where sales of petrol van variants are usually almost non-existent, Mini expects over 28% of sales of this vehicle to be of the entry-level 1.6 litre petrol-powered Club Van 1, though the pokier Cooper petrol model, mainly made for the US, will be much rarer, accounting for a likely model mix of just 2%. Without the VAT, a Club Van 1 will set you back just over £11,000, with the Cooper variant offered for a further £1,200 premium. Alternatively, there's the version that 70% of customers will go for, the one I'm trying here, the diesel-powered Cooper D, which without the VAT will cost you from just over £14,000. Now, that's a saving of well over £4,000 on the VAT-inclusive price of an equivalent Clubman car model with the same engine. Of course, if your business is too small to reclaim VAT, the picture isn't so rosy. With the Chancellor's 20% pound of flesh included, this Club Van Cooper D would cost you just over £17,000, and that would mean an overall asking price only £125 shy of a comparable Mini Clubman Cooper D. the passenger car. All club van models are available with a 6-speed automatic gearbox for a premium of around £900, which is certainly worth considering if you're going to be schlepping about town all day. Does this vehicle have any rivals? Not really. The Vauxhall Corsa van and the Ford Fiesta van are the two closest competitors in terms of size, and both can be ordered in sporty guises to suit those in search of something more fashionable. Do that though, and you won't save much over this Mini, nor will you get a vehicle that'll be much more practical. You'll get an ordinary van that in many ways will be rather foolishly pretending to be something it really isn't. A club van though is different. It's fun, it's brilliant to drive, and it's probably the perfect way to reward yourself if you've set up a small business from scratch and need to move small items about over small distances in a way that will attract plenty of attention without suggesting that your company is doing excessively well. So, if you choose one, what will you get as part of the standard spec? A reasonable amount, actually. This is actually the only Mini you can buy that it's impossible to order without alloy wheels, neat 15 inches that here have been optionally uprated to 16-inch in size. Great for looks, but prone to curb scrapes if you're not careful while making street deliveries. Apart from that, all customers can expect to find roof rails, a Thatcham Category 1 alarm, electric front windows, power mirrors, a decent quality stereo system with DAB digital radio and aux-in connection, a full height bulkhead and a 12-volt power socket. Plus, you get an outside temperature gauge, and there's remote central locking that locks all of the doors automatically above 10 miles an hour. Safety-wise, a 5-star Euro NCAP crash test showing is justified by twin front and side airbags, plus a tyre pressure warning system and all the usual electronic assistance. This runs to DSC dynamic stability control, CBC cornering brake control and EBD electronic brake force distribution to maximise the effectiveness of the anti-lock brakes. In true Mini style, there are loads of possible options, except when it comes to paint colour choice. You're stuck with either green, white, blue or black. As for the extra cost stuff, well, it makes sense to buy into it through one of the packs that Mini offers rather than ticking boxes individually. The base Salt pack adds the floor mats, leather-covered steering wheel, passenger seat height adjustment and extra storage compartments that are rather meanly deleted from the baseline version, along with front fog lamps. Even Salt spec doesn't give you the Bluetooth phone compatibility that most users will probably want though. You'll find that in the plusher Pepper pack that's been fitted to the car I have here. Now, this also adds niceties like white indicators, automatic lights and wipers, chrome exterior trim and automatic operation for the air conditioning. Get your car in Salt or Pepper spec and you'll also pay a little less for the optional media pack I'm also trying here, which, as well as sat-nav, will give you what the brand calls a radio visual boost, plus all of the advantages of the Mini connected setup. This can hook you up to web radio, Google services, RSS news feeds, and will offer in-car access to Facebook and Twitter. Other individual options include parking sensors, plus the sports seats, sports steering wheel and front centre armrest fitted to this car. I'd also probably pay the handful of loose change Mini will want to heat the door mirrors and the windscreen washer jets. Now, it's all very well pitching this club van as a fashionable little commercial trinket, but like any van, there'll come a point when it actually has to earn its living. Is it up to the job? Well, let's open these twin side hinge doors and find out. They're fitted with tinted glass, which means that there are no issues with load security, something already addressed thanks to the way that the ordinary Clubman model's rear side windows have here been blocked out with polycarbonate panels. Now, the doors themselves don't open especially wide. The door aperture is 990 millimetres wide and 635 millimetres high. Another reason not to try and squeeze in the really bulky loads this Mini isn't really built to carry anyway. The lack of a rear hatch means that forklifts couldn't get close, so you'd have to lump anything really big above the 660mm rear loading height yourself. There's a useful underfloor storage compartment, but you won't want to be transporting anything especially messy above it, as the load area and the cargo box sides are trimmed in carpet, which is why I'd want this practical load base covering. You've also got a nice car-like headlining on the roof, which atones for its impracticality by helping to make the vehicle quieter and reducing the risk of condensation forming and dripping. There's 840mm of height here and 1090mm of width, reducing to 1025mm at the narrowest point, though there's no wheel arch intrusion. It all means that in total you've got just under 0.9 cubic metres of space available to you here. That's 860 litres, which isn't a lot different from what you get in a supposedly more practical Ford Fiesta van or Vauxhall Corsa van. Apparently, you can take up to 500 kilograms too, though you might have cause to doubt that when kneeling on the bit of floor that spans the underfloor storage area and feeling it flex beneath your weight. Regular users of this vehicle's total carriage capacity are actually going to be kneeling here rather a lot, for unless you're preposterously tall, there's really no other way of reaching items at the end of the long, narrow, 1150mm long cargo bay. But hold on, doesn't this Mini come as standard with a side door? Well, yes it does, but it's not going to be much use to you. Let me show you what I mean. To be honest, this is more like a hinged flap than a proper door. An interior mesh divider completely gets in the way of the access this aperture should provide, allowing you to stretch an arm in and maybe slot in a briefcase or something, but not a lot else. Not that in any case you'd really want to be placing yourself here for loading duties. Because of the way the fuel tank in this vehicle's design has been positioned to favour left-hand drive models, this side door has been located on the wrong side of the vehicle, which means that if you were to be putting things in here when parked by the pavement, you'd be standing in the face of oncoming traffic whilst trying to do so. Apparently the cost of converting this whole arrangement to better suit right-hand drive markets was said to be prohibitive. On the plus side, Mini has added an extra light to better illuminate the loading bay, and there are a couple of cargo area power sockets, plus 6 cargo tie-down points to keep your ethically sourced wares from moving around. If you do forget to use these and everything slides forward, then you'll be glad of the fashionably curved low-level aluminium bulkhead that, topped with a sturdy wire mesh divider, separates the cargo bay from the cabin up front. Unfortunately though, this also means that really long items can't be poked through to rest between driver and passenger. Still, you could put items like these on the roof if you chose to equip the standard roof rails with an optional ladder rack. As for running costs, well, there's plenty of good news here, thanks to the brand's minimalism efficiency package, which claims to cut emissions by up to 28% through features like brake energy regeneration, a dashboard gear change indicator, and a stop-start system that cuts the engine when you don't need it, stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. You might expect that the lighter curb weight this van ought to enjoy over an ordinary Clubman estate would help too. After all, losing that rear bench must make quite a difference. But apparently not. Mini says that a club van is just 15 kilograms lighter than its passenger car stablemate. Still, few will grouse about the balance sheet figures. The Cooper D diesel model that I've been trying here, the version that most customers will buy, can return a combined cycle fuel figure of 72.4 miles to the gallon, with green-friendly CO2 emissions of 103 grams per kilometre. Go for either of the 1.6 litre normally aspirated petrol models, the 98 brake horsepower Clubvan 1 or the 122 brake horsepower Clubvan Cooper, and in both cases you can expect 51.4 miles to the gallon and 129 grams per kilometre of CO2. What else? Well, remember that you'll have to pay the higher levels of road tax that are associated with vans. So while a MINI Clubman Cooper D will cost £20 a year for its windscreen disc, a near identical Clubvan Cooper D like this one will set you back £220 a year for the same thing. That's the same as a giant double cab 4x4 pickup. Just as well then that thanks to the relative rarity, residual values will be very strong. Though not quite as resilient perhaps as those of the original Morris minivan, good examples of which from the early 60s are now said to be worth as much as £10,000. On to peace of mind. True, the 3-year unlimited mileage warranty isn't anything to write home about, but servicing intervals are reasonably long, every 16 to 18,000 miles, and garage costs can be kept down through buying a maintenance package up front at time of purchase. Insurance is Group 3E. Not every commercial vehicle must justify itself in terms of pounds, shillings and pence. Here's one that you might buy for other reasons. Because you like what it will say about your business. Because you like what it will say about you. Many will see in this MINI Clubvan just the right blend of fun and practicality. Yes, of course, there are more sensible choices that you could make in this small van segment, but none of them will get your brand noticed in quite the same way. And how do you put a value on that? Which means that if your need for a van really is merely limited to light urban duties, then this one might be just about perfect. Imagine a chic florist or an artisan baker who needs a stylish way of delivering lightweight goods while advertising their business in a way sure to appeal to those with a bit of disposable income and a sense of style. Exactly. Yes, it's a pity about the restricted side door access, and the costs can really rack up once you start ticking a few options boxes. Otherwise though, provided your assessment of this model is based on what it actually sets out to offer, there's not a lot to gripe about. You don't need to be a fanatic to drive one. So it is that this club van neatly sidesteps so many of the demanding measures most place upon commercial vehicles. All it needs to be is cool, fun to drive, and reliable with a modicum of carrying capacity. Self-employed with a small business? Your adventure awaits.